I think it's the first time something like this has happened here in sculpture anyway, you know. I suppose it's a bit like, well, I don't want to beg comparisons, but I mean, it's perhaps like Aldborough, you know, or the conception's similar, you know, sort of collecting sculptors together and artists together and hoping something's generated by the interaction.
I've known several of the English sculptors that have put this together for several years, and so when they were thinking about people to invite, they asked me, and I jumped at the chance.
The idea for the workshop came from Tony Cara's Triangle Workshops in New York, which he'd been running for 5 years, and I've been on 2 of those. And I thought that England could do with a workshop because visual art in England is pretty badly treated.
My name's Peter Hyde. I come from London initially, but I now work in Edmonton in Canada most of the year. I was a student at St Martin's School and I taught there for some years. And I left for Canada in the late 70s. This type of sculpture is built out of parts, you know, like architecture. It doesn't look like architecture, but it's sculpture you arrive at by an additive process, you know. So I was just welding one part to another, you know. I suppose it's not like architecture in the sense that it isn't designed usually, you know, that you work with the pieces, the found pieces, and assemble them. In a sense, the found pieces are like the subject matter, you know, like Cézanne might paint apples and drapery and books, and that's the subject matter of his painting. Well, the subject matter of this sculpture is pieces of steel with certain, perhaps evocative shapes, you know. I suppose, I mean, Cézanne's paintings aren't really about apples, you know, any more than this is about bits of steel, but I think people have a problem getting beyond the bits of steel, you know.
It's a very good setup, and this is the first workshop I've been to. So it's, I mean, I've come in very fresh. I haven't been to any other workshops before, whereas some of the artists have already been to other workshops in America. So, you know, they have a different outlook. And also, because I've just come from college, it's like this at college, working with other people, whereas the other artists, maybe they will have their own studios, and they're coming into it's totally different for them. My idea is really, I'm very interested in architecture and architectural things, and also furniture, an African sculpture, an Egyptian sculpture, and just basically looking around me and taking ideas from, you know, just looking around in the environment. And I like to have my ideas have things enclosed, very contained. So my sculpture is very contained. I've been working on that sort of idea, those ideas, throughout my college course.
Normally I work with bronze in my own studio in Syracuse. Workshops like this give me a chance to go up in scale, work some larger pieces with similar ideas I do with bronze, but in a larger scale with steel. However, since there is a foundry graciously provided by this workshop available, I have a couple small reliefs that I'd like to try to make a sand mold of and see if I can get one off. This has been the fastest 2-week workshop I've ever had the pleasure of attending. We're into our second week, and actually this is the last day. Thursday's the last working day before the big cleanup and setting up of the exhibition. So everyone is feverishly working to try to finish up. Fortunate enough to have a sandblaster or shot blaster, and this enables you to allow the surface to be pulled together. It's a nice even texture, evens up the welded areas and the modeled areas that are formed by welding parts together. And then afterwards, a pretty ugly gray color right now, but afterwards I plan to rust them, possibly with some acetic acid and water, and control the color of the rust, and then neutralize it at the right tone and seal it with some matte varnish, which should last quite a while.
My name's Martin Welsh, and I'm a lecturer at the School of Art in Norwich. And this is bronze. And really I'm working on forms dealing with the stability of a form that is immovable, that is rooted to ground level and won't budge. Also dealing with the idea of things falling around it. In a sense, it would be rather simplistic to call this a mountain and this a stream running down it. It isn't about that. But it could be some sort of equivalent for that sort of idea. It's almost Baroque. I mean, it's very strange. I didn't really totally anticipate what was to happen. It's become rather Baroque, sort of swirling and all very organic, which I really rather like. I'm really rather pleased with it. It's been a bit of a surprise, which I suppose what this workshop's about.
My name is Valentine Tutransky, and I'm from New York City, and I've been writing art criticism for the last 14 years. And I think what John Foster has done here is remarkable. It's the best sculpture workshop that I've ever been to, and I've been both to workshops at Emma Lake in Canada, at Tony Carroll's Triangle workshop last year. I was the guest critic, and I'm very impressed with the work here. What we see here is modernist sculpture, and sculpture such as this could not have come into being without the example that was set by such masters as David Smith, Picasso, Gonzalez.
One of the, I think, most original pieces in the show here is a very tall sculpture by Peter Hyde, which is the tallest single sculpture in the show. And it shows his approach to working with steel, which I think is unique. He tends to make tall, monolithic, almost columnar pieces, and that's an extremely good example. In this case, offsetting a long, flat plate that virtually goes from floor to the top of the piece with these wonderful curved shapes that he's fitted in. For a long time, sculptors who worked in steel did very open, linear constructions, something like this one here, which is kind of drawing in space. This is by Roger Mack, who's an American artist from Syracuse. And I think one of the interesting things about Rogers is that it has this linear cage-like thing, but and the general configuration of a figure, but it's not a figure. It's a kind of much more abstract than a figure would be. And the sculpture over here is by Lyle Liss, who's a young Canadian, and it's sort of a cross between the two. It's not fully closed in like a Hyde, and neither is it an extreme kind of linear framework like the Roger Mack. And while it's very abstract, it has a kind of dynamism that's a little reminiscent of a figure. I think that's one of the great sources of originality and expression in Liss's work. So I think those three artists show one kind of spectrum, but there are many other kinds of things to be found in the show. Things like squarish architectural things that John Gibbons, who's a London sculptor, has in the back over here. And all kinds of things. You just have to look around you and you see this wonderful sculpture, very, very high-level sculpture. that I think would be unique and powerful anywhere in the world. I think some of the world's best sculptors are here.
Thank you. Thank you very much.